Hello, I am Lena Spaho. I am the founder of Inside the Walls blog and Inside the Walls and Beyond Facebook group. Today, I have with me Rick and Retta Sundblad. Rick and Retta have been married for 40 years. In 2016, their world was rocked to its core when they were accused of a crime and found themselves facing federal prison. Rick went to trial and was ultimately sentenced to 40 months. Retta took a plea deal and received a 51-month sentence. While in prison, Retta finished her Bachelor's of Divinity degree, and Rick taught classes to other inmates on both Bible classes and CDL. I was fortunate enough to work with and when reentry with Retta at FPC Bryan, where we worked hard with little information and help, trying to help other inmates prepare for their reentry into society. Rick and Retta are here today to discuss the impact of incarceration on mental health issues and barriers to reentry into society. So please help me by welcoming Rick and Retta to my show. And I thank y'all for coming on, and I'm going to turn it over to the two of you and let you tell us a little bit to start about yourselves.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here with you, Lynn. Pleasure to see you on the outside. Absolutely. As you said, we worked in the Reentry Office, which is really kind of a joke. When Lynn and I were in there, we were told that we were not supposed to type resumes for the inmates. Originally, we had been doing resumes to help inmates leave, and we were told that we were no longer to do that. We had classes that were being taught on reentry, and we were originally told that we weren't to teach classes either. I'm not quite sure what they really wanted us to do other than to take a space in the office.
And watch movies.
Oh yeah, and watch movies, although we were eventually told we weren't supposed to do that either. But we were able to finally convince them that, unless we could help these women who are about to leave, many who had served years and years and years, who had no computer knowledge and had no idea of how to set up a resume. And quite frankly, it was very hard for some of us. Now, Lynn was very imaginative. She could put a resume together and make it sound great. I struggled a little bit with that, but Lynn was really good. And, it's really hard to try and come up with a resume for someone who has never had a legal job. Many of the women there had only had illegal activities. So, and then what they had done at the prison. So trying to come up with a resume for them was a bit of a struggle. But eventually we were able to convince the powers that be to let us teach some reentry classes, dress for success, how to get a job with a felony. Lynn taught a QuickBooks class, which was amazing because a lot of people leaving prison find a need to go into business for themselves, because with the felony checkbox, they're not able to get jobs. And so they need to figure out a way to take care of themselves. And so sometimes entrepreneurship is the easiest way for them to do that. And so Lynn helped them with the QuickBooks, which, they're going to need in order to keep their accounting correct and not have any problems. What about you, dear?
Well, entrepreneurship is great, but if you catch the wrong PO, he will say you can't work for yourself. And I found that in the men's prison. I would say roughly 5 to 7% of the men that were in either Edgefield or maybe a few more, a higher percentage in Montgomery, had any computer skills at all. And again, the computers at the men's facility was almost non-existent. That's why
were yours out of date? Because I know the ones that we had were way out of date.
Terrible out of date.
Yeah.
And so that's why I offered to teach a CDL class, because I knew these guys could go out and make a living driving if they had to.
Yeah.
And I had done that for years when I was National Damage Administrator for Ryder. So I taught that class and I knew it like the back of my hand. I was very fortunate when I come out. I walked into I'm retired, of course, I'm 70, but I walked into a driving job at the greatest university in the world, Clemson, home of the Tigers, and I love it. But we have a good time. And the thing is, when you walk out, you've already got 2 strikes against you. It was really sad to see psychologically how it affects even professional guys. It took me for a real loop. And the guys that have no, like Retta said, have never held a real job or a legal job, let's put it that way, a legal job in their entire life. And then they have to come out and do that. I had a couple doctors in there with me. I had 2 or 3 attorneys, 2 judges. So there was some professional guys in where I was at. And we tried to teach these fellas what they were going to face. One guy says to me, he says, well, I just don't understand. He says, how many jobs do you have when you walk out of here? I says, probably 4. He says, I can't even find anybody that will talk to me. We had a job fair there, and there were several actual people that come to the job fair. Sally and I dressed the part as much as we could. We starched our greens, buttoned up, polished our boots, made us look sharp. Out of the 25 guys that went down to apply for jobs, guess who got offers for jobs right off the bat? Me and what was his name?
I have no idea.
Oh, anyway,
I wasn't there.
he looked like I looked like Kenny Rogers, and he looked like Willie Nelson. So that's what they call it.
But Rick, let me ask you this. Let me interject there for a minute. Do you think that's because of your out of prison experiences and you already knowing that? Because that's probably not something the BOP told you to go and do. Am I right about that? You knew to go and polish your boots, get presentable,
You're right.
Look that way because of your past professional history. So what did you see, if anything, the BOP do?
Correct.
Well, what did the BOP do?
BOP did nothing. The BOP did nothing. And AOC here the other day said, well, the way we can cut crime is just not build more prisons. All that will do is we'll overload the ones we have that are already overloaded. And so her answer to that is, yeah,
in this country
is a joke. And the thing that upset or concerns me, Lynn, is psychologically it will take anybody for a role. And
Absolutely.
you've got to overcome that. You've got to find a way to, or find somebody that will help you, be a mentor and or an outside source that will help you through that issue, will help. And I'm going to tell you, the Muslims have got it. They've got it down. I've seen more people come into the system that had nothing in, make sure they had money on their account, make sure they had somebody to write to, make sure when they went out that they had somewhere to go that would help them find a job. And the church today, our church, the Christian church, is really missing out because those people are sold out to that much. And I'm not selling that correctly but it really upsets me that our churches are not being active like they need to be, not near as much. I mean, we need to have people going into the prisons to help psychologically give these guys a boost, to talk to them, because they come out, they don't even think you'll talk to them. And I've had that happen to me. I've had some people that, oh, well, he did time. Well, yeah, I did. And I was right up front with it. And I'm going to tell you, the best thing you can do is be straight up and up front with it. I wrote a letter to the company that I was going to go to work for, and I told them, this is what I done, this is what I got, and this is where I've been. But I can do a good job for you. And I've been there now, not a year.
Yeah.
And I oversee all the maintenance on all the buses down at Clemson that this company has. There's about 6, 7 of them. I oversee all that. I help the manager with what he has to do. And it's all what you can do from yourself. You got to insert yourself too, but you got to find somebody that will help you get through the hump, get over the psychological hump of what you're under and what you're fighting.
I think
Did you have did you have mental health, anxiety type PTSD, any mental health issues when you came out, Rick?
For a while, but I had a son that our son was really behind me, and he spent a lot of time talking to me and talking to his mother, both about this, and he did a great job, and he's a very positive guy, and I'm a pretty positive guy too. But when you get in a situation like this that you see no way of getting out of, it's a real predicament. And if you think that the facility or the federal government's going to help you, you are sadly mistaken. They may have classes that they present that's what, so they can get paid for it, but they don't do anything but go down there and sit and do nothing. And that's why
Retta, you had
another
an
guy that I
experience. You had an experience like that at Bryan, didn't you, with a class that was supposed to be evidence-based psychology?
Yes. They have a trauma program there that I enrolled in, and it was funny because when I was sentenced, the judge told me, she says, "We're going to be able to get you a lot of help, Miss Sundblad." I had been sexually abused for 10 years as a child, from the age of 4 to 14. And she says, when you get into the prison, you're going to get a lot of help for that. So I entered the trauma program. And number one, it was not an individual program. It was a group program. And we did such things as watch cartoons. We played Jenga one day. We sat, and she had us close our eyes, and the mindfulness exercises, and as far as I'm concerned, they were totally used.
So what you saw was that
it was just something to mark off.
Your internet cut out. I'm so sorry. So I think what you're telling my listening audience is that the classes were claimed to be evidence-based classes and were supposed to be for mental health issues. However, you're watching cartoons, playing Jenga. Did you feel that class helped you in any way to deal with your traumas?
Oh no! One of the we spent 2 sessions watching a documentary on 9/11.
Well, I think that'd be more traumatic. That to me, that would cause more trauma.
Crazy. Now, I will say, absolutely. Now, I did go to a faith-based class by a woman named Coco Mullins. In fact, I think you were in there with me, Lynn.
I was.
And it was amazing. It was.
The volunteers were great
really
that came in.
Yes.
It's a shame they're cutting them out. The BOP's trying to cut them out. At least they were at Bryan. But, my experience was the ones that came in and taught us that were volunteer were the best ones. They were the ones helping. So, I don't know why the BOP is so against that.
We had a class at Edgefield. There was about 4 of us guys that were pretty faith-based, and one guy's name was Bennett, and he and I talked a lot, and he found a way to word the classes that he was teaching differently, like political science. Political science is nothing more than a class on faith, and he built his class entirely on faith and to help psychologically with growing the faith of the inmates. You had to stand. There was standing room in that class. He taught that class. He taught another of government fundamentals, which was another faith-based class. They never come and checked, so we just taught what needed to be taught. And I seen a lot of men really open the word, number one. Number two, taking notes, and really, I've talked to them ever since, been in contact with them. They have used some of the points that Bennett and I used in those classes to make it through and to become a very prominent and successful member of society.
Lynn, if you remember, awesome. We had a Harvard educated psychiatrist that we served time with there that helped develop a class on codependency and breaking the cycle of abuse. She was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And, those were the things, the inmates were the ones that were leading the way to help. And not the BOP, definitely not the BOP. You would go to
Absolutely.
open house if you had a concern, and you were lucky if you got in, and if you did, they spent 5 minutes with you and did nothing else.
It was really neat in these classes after we'd been doing them for a while. Some of the guys got enough chutzpah to start teaching their class. They'd done some studying, they'd done some reading, some working with the other guys, and they started teaching other classes. And so here we seen 50 and 60, 70 guys in a class learning about political science, which was not political science, but it was basically psychologically helping them make this through. And it helped me. I mean, just being able to teach helped me, because I like to share things. And sharing is one of the things I like to teach. I enjoy showing and teaching things, and it's one of my things that the Lord has helped me have is that gift. And even yet today, I talk to Rusker, I talk to a lot of them. And that was another one. He had a degree in computer science, and the man was a whiz. And he was an actor from the West Coast, and had just a bunch of he was in for a white collar crime. But just becoming in that group, that's one thing. Another thing that helped is finding the group in there that you could sit there and talk to each other and grow upon each other and with each other, and come out of that group stronger.
So let me ask you this. I know your situation, you had somewhere to go, both of you, when you got out. You had vehicles still left, you had some resources. So, upon reentry to society, what barriers, even with a support group, what barriers do you think that you had? And are you aware of barriers that other people that you talk to that maybe came out in a different situation, what their barriers are to reentry to society?
I think one of the big ones, Lynn, I didn't mean to interrupt, but one of the big ones to me is the invisible psychological wall. That's what I call it. Because, if you come from a small town, which this town is small, and when your face has been on the front page of the newspaper, everybody,
Yeah.
and especially if you were doing something like real estate or was a businessman or something like
Community
that,
service.
community service, being Mr. Claus, doing all kinds of things like that, they knew who you were.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I had a lot of people, and I hate to say it, I had a lot of Christians that shunned me. And that's very frustrating to me, because in Matthew 25, it says we're not supposed to shun those that have been in prison. We're supposed to help them. And yet I've got other guys that offered me jobs, that asked me if there's anything I needed, and treated me. I come back here, I'd done business with the one guy here in town for years. And I walked in and I said, "So, Bob, are we okay?" He said, "Why wouldn't we be? I've known you for 25 years. It's just 3 years. It's no big deal."
That's
And,
good.
you
So
know,
you had a pretty good, as far as besides some of the stigmatism, what you're talking about, I think, is the way some people related to you, and you had a stigmatism in their eye after being, in prison. But otherwise, you've had a good success rate coming back into society. Would you say that's the same for you as well, Retta?
I have struggled more. I have struggled more with guilt and shame than what Rick has. And I think, part of it was that I didn't want to go anywhere where I'd see anyone. One of the church members had posted the news article about me and said, "Can you believe this?" And I was cut to the core. And so then I became a recluse. I stayed home. I didn't want to see anybody, but and I was stuck at home for 50 weeks. I wasn't able to go to church. And so it has just been in the last month that we have been able to go to church. And I have to say, it has really been wonderful. I've really been welcomed. I've had people run up to me and just hug me and tell me, we love you. And so that has done a lot for me. Just being able to find a new network of support. And
Now
then
that
I'm
50,
also,
that 50 weeks you're talking about was because you were home on an ankle monitor on the CARES Act. I want to clarify that for the audience. When we first came out, those of us who got out on the CARES Act, Rick, I know you served your time and got out on the regular type of release prior to COVID hitting. But Retta, I guess you got out on the elderly release. Is that correct?
no, it was actually the CARES Act, because I wasn't due to come out on elder release until June. However, I was released in April under the CARES Act, which it then just went over to elder release in June. And then,
but you didn't. The reason that we were like that is because the halfway house that was over us would not allow us to go out. We were on restriction on the ankle monitor. So in that setting, I don't know how you felt, but I felt like, you're supposed to be transitioning us back into society. But however, you're telling me, unless it's the doctor or work, I can't go out of my house. So what transition is that back into society?
absolutely, I couldn't even go to the grocery store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was only cabin bound for about 2 weeks, and then they started letting me go to the grocery store. It was really funny because my son would say, well, I gotta go to the grocery store. I go, can I go along? Or what'd you say you needed from the grocery store? I'll go, or something like that. And
anything to get out of the house.
Yeah, the church that where I was there in Waxahachie, Texas, at our son's house, they were very proactive in the prison ministry with Mr. Blass and that whole bunch.
Bill Glass,
excuse me. And he, it really helped. It really did. The first Sunday I was there, I got to tell you this, they were having a special on prison ministry for the Sunday service. I'm sitting back there on my hands going, I have things I would love to tell you, and after I got through, I went up and Retta had run into the pastor's wife at
yes, we did.
And so that was an in for me, and the people of that church just loved me. The men, I think it made it a lot easier because the guys they did Matthew 25. They would go to breakfast with me, lunch with me. We'd go, one guy needed a battery. I was broke for a while and I needed a battery from a truck. Next thing I know, I got a $150 battery sitting on my truck, and just stuff like that. And that's awesome. I think men will get closer like that. And women, I know Retta is she's a softie, and it's hard for her to do that. And for me, I just open up and say, well, this is the way it is. And you can either like me or you don't have to. I don't care. But I can tell you.
Do either of you, I know all three of us serve time with other women and men. So as far as barriers to reentry and mental health issues with people that you may know about that have gotten out, what is your take on those two subjects, those topics? What have you seen that would, you could give us some examples of?
I see a lot of women struggling with old associations, that they have not developed new friendships. Right. And so they get drawn back into the same crowd that perhaps led them into what they were doing. Yes. And I think now I am somewhat paranoid, and we kind of talked about this, because I feel like my PO is just looking for everything, for me to make one little mistake and send me back to prison. And as you know, Lynn, it doesn't take much to send someone back to prison.
You think?
And yeah. And so, you know, I find an anxiety and a paranoia. And I think some of the women that I have seen really don't have a sense of paranoia. They think that they can do what they want to do what they used to do, and post about it all over the internet. And I'm thinking, what are they thinking? What are you thinking that you're not more aware?
Yes.
More aware.
And do you feel frightened for them? I mean, is that something that it worries you
Absolutely.
for them? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because
And
nobody
you
wants
don't
to
know.
see anybody go back to that horrible place.
No, and you know, and quite frankly, you're thinking, well, should I say something to them? But you know, I'm thinking they're gonna say it's none of your business what I do. You know, you stay in your own lane. And
Right.
so you know, now if it was someone that I was close to, I would definitely say something to them. But you know, a lot of the acquaintances we have are just that, just mere acquaintances.
Do you
I
think that
I
those
think,
people are still
but
struggling with reentry and mental health issues like anxiety, stress that may be causing some of that for them to seek support from familiar people, maybe?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, I had started because I want to begin a support group for the incarcerated or formerly incarcerated or their families. And I was trying to look up some statistics, and I was just floored because I was looking at several studies that said 9 out of 10 women that are incarcerated have been assaulted. However, the DOJ says only 39% have been. And I'm thinking, what? You know, and of course, you know, we know that they couldn't be wrong.
They're out of
And
touch, out of
yeah,
touch.
they have no idea. They have no idea. And, you know, there are lots of abused women that have not had a chance to, and how sad to be locked up for months and years and not deal with any of those traumas, any of those things which would help them be successful upon reentry.
Yes, I agree. Rick, what about men? Do you think that men go about that approach differently, or do you think that they're struggling in those areas as well?
I think they're struggling, but they're not letting many people know it. The best thing I could do for me, was to hit my knees in a men's prayer group and we prayed it and cried it out. And once I got beyond that, and once I realized that I was going to be able to make it, that God wasn't done with me at 69, 68 years old, I realized that I've got a lot to talk about, a lot of things, a lot of experiences, a lot of things that will help other people. These people that go into the federal system or in the state system, if they've never been there before, if they've just been to county jail overnight, they have no idea what they're up against. Nothing.
Right. Yes, I
Uh,
agree.
Poncho is, I'm like Poncho in one eye. I'm sort of a mover and a shaker and get things done. And when I got in prison, I found out that brick wall was a lot more than what I could move. And
Yeah.
it was very difficult. And yet,
And
neither one of the,
frustrating.
it is, neither one of the prisons I was at even had a wall around it, but it had an invisible wall.
Yeah.
You know.
So if you had any parting words to say to the listening audience, and I'm gonna ask you this question first, Retta. Parting words to anyone that's trying to come back into society, things that you might think that would help them. Parting words for people that are maybe suffering from anxiety, PTSD. What you would say to them specifically, since you did get your bachelor's in counseling while you were at Bryan. What would you suggest? What do you think that would be helpful to any inmate that, you know, between your reentry experience and your counseling experience upon reentry to society?
My first suggestion would be to find a church, and to find a church which you can feel comfortable with and share, and see if you can get a meeting for the women with the pastor's wife or with the women's minister, and just share your experience with them. I would also suggest going to your county mental health agency. I'm here in South Carolina, and we have the Pickens Behavioral Health Center, and they have sliding fees to, where the fees are nominal, if any, that you have to pay to go and see a therapist, and they'll set you up, they'll set goals for you. And, I would suggest that you do that. I would suggest that when you're in church, that you get active in church. I need to take this call. Rick,
Well,
I'll
let Rick finish this out then. Rick, finish out for us what's your take on that?
I think it is very true. The first thing is get involved in a good church, a Bible teaching church.
Yeah.
And you've got to, I was very fortunate, as I told you, the Bible church there in Waxahachie was very strong in the prison ministry. And if you can find a church that is that way, that is where to start, because they've already got a heart for the ministry and a heart to help you and to reach out to you. So that is where I would go with it, and to start there. Also, when you go back to your friends, just be honest with them. And you're going to have those that say, I don't want to see you. But you're going to have a lot more say, we're glad you're home. We're glad you're here. There's something we can do for you. Especially those that have known you for 20 years, they'll, or more, they'll gladly, this country is always for the underdog, it seems like. And so
I guess that's a good thing, right? Because we definitely come back being the underdog, I would say.
And so I think that's what we need to do is go where we can be used and where the Lord wants us, and with those people that can help us and mentor us.
So parting words, Retta may not make it back in for this, but parting words from Rick and Retta Sundblad to, what is it that you see society could do better, either to help, people to reenter, or, the resources that are missing, or, you can expand if you'd like into what do you think society could do better as far as the amount of people we're locking up for nonviolent crimes?
I think that we're locking up far too many. For my example, I was not a threat to society. Retta wasn't a threat to society. You weren't a threat to society. For us to be somebody that's shot somebody or has done some other type of crime, or is, that's a threat to this society, I think they're the ones that need to be rehabilitated. And I use that term loosely. I think the best thing we can do, I know all they'd had to do is put a monitor on me for a year, I'd been fine, but I think we as Christians need to be there with open arms and with love and with support for those as they come out. And that's what we've done. Even here, if I hear of somebody that's, so-and-so's brother's coming out or getting ready to come out, I'll say, hey, can I help him? Can I talk to him? Would you mind can you make me in contact, so that he knows he's got, or she knows they've got some support.
Retta, what I was asking Rick was, give us your parting words on what you think, number one, the biggest thing that could help someone reentering society, and number two, what do you think as a society we should be doing better, as far as how many people we're locking up, nonviolent offenders? What could we as a society do to make society safe and still, not put mental health issues on people that we do know are caused by the impact of incarceration? Everybody has some sort of mental health from that situation, being in that environment. And again, we were in camps. So as I talk to people that have been in higher security, I'm finding that the mental health, anxiety, PTSD things, because of the violence and things they see at higher levels, is so much worse than what we had. So what would be your parting words to my listening audience in regards to those two questions?
First of all, my goal would be to try and find churches that are willing to be a support group to people coming out of prison, that when they came out of prison, that there would be someone to meet them and let them know you are worthy. you are enough, you are cared for. And then to be that support, I mean, how about, helping to find childcare for that single mom out there who must find a job and must go to work. And, if the church could supply childcare, if they could help them get into an apartment, maybe help get furniture for them. I mean, when you come out, many people come out with nothing. I mean, Rick and I were
Absolutely.
very blessed.
Oh, me too.
We didn't come out with nothing. Now we don't have a home, but we have a motor home.
But you had a roof over your head and you knew
Yes.
you were going home to somewhere. And
Yeah.
I do agree. A lot of the women we served time with, they lost everything. That either the government took it, their family took it while they were in prison, or they just had to abandon it when they left or was arrested. So it's some pretty dire situations out there. And I think that because we were blessed, we don't really have the same experiences as the people that weren't. And I think society is overlooking them. What would you say to that's your barriers to reentry, the help? What would you say to letting non-violent offenders stay in their community to serve their time so they're not separated and don't lose those family contacts?
Well, and it just is common sense, which apparently is not so common anymore. Why not let the people stay out, put them to work, and if they are unable to function under community supervision, then you must take the next step. But if you could take these nonviolent offenders, keep them in the community, let them continue to work, let them keep their homes or whatever, let them continue to have relationships. I mean, the BOP, says, oh, we're all about family relationships. That is a pure lie. When Rick got out and I was at Carswell, they wouldn't approve for him to come see me.
Right.
Yeah. So how was that strengthening our family, our marriage? It just doesn't happen.
I agree. I don't know if you remember, but one of the most heart-wrenching things I ever saw at Bryan would be when children would try to cling to their mamas when they were leaving visitation. And that my heart would hurt so bad because I have kids, but they were older, 2 of them even out of the house whenever, I had to go to prison. I only had 1 at home, my youngest. And I know the psychological challenge it was for him when I left, because it is heart-wrenching whenever someone leaves and has to go to prison. He was in the 11th grade, but I saw little itty bitty, little tiny ones that their moms were in prison with us and they just clung and didn't understand why mommy couldn't go home with them. And it truly was heartbreaking. And my point is, what would society be better served if they would have got to stay home and raise their kids? What scars could we have prevented from those children getting and having?
Right.
Yeah. And what are you doing generationally to this family?
Right.
Absolutely.
It's a proven fact that
circular pattern.
Children of the incarcerated many times end up being incarcerated themselves.
Or grandchildren.
Yes.
Absolutely. So I really appreciate y'all coming on and talking with me today. Retta is one of my favorite people I met while I was in the prison system. And Rick, I'm pretty fond of you now too. And, it lets you know there are many good people that are serving time. I hope we can keep being a voice out here and breaking some of the stigmatism of that, sharing our stories, letting people see the realness of the people that are behind bars. And I really hope that at some point we can change the way society looks at, nonviolent offenders. And, just people deserve a second chance even. I don't see a lot of people getting those as well. And I think that's where the recidivism rate comes in, is people that have everything placed in front of them to fail. They don't let them out with a driver's license or help them get a social security card. They have no ID. That makes it hard for them to get a job, a bank account, rent somewhere. Then you've got the felony conviction that follows you forever, especially in the federal system. And on top of that, some places won't rent to them because they have a felony. So by the time you put all these walls and obstacles up, it's no wonder that people that don't have a support group end up back serving time again, because they relate back to what they can do to make money. And most of the time, that's what got them in prison to start with.
The next time you go to Walmart, count every 6th person you meet, because 1 out of 6 people have either been in prison, jail, or have a close relative that is in prison. So go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and see how many people as you go through that store are related or have done time.
Yeah, that's a
And
big statistic. And we continue to lock more and more people up in this country. So, the answer definitely is not more incarceration. In fact, it's not making society safer anyway. Statistics show that. Well, I thank y'all for coming on today. I appreciate your time and your voice. And I just want you to know that keep speaking out, doing what you're doing. I love the marriage class you're teaching. I think it's going to be valuable to a lot of people, the relationship class. And, keep doing what you're doing. And hopefully one village, one huge voice, the more speaking out, the more maybe the louder we can get, people might start to listen. Thank you so much for your
Absolutely.
time.
Henry says, hello, Auntie Lynn.
Goodbye, Henry. And thank y'all for coming on. Bye-bye.